Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Deal Scout. Josh here, fellow deal makers. On today's show, we're going to have a conversation about SPACs. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, me too. So I've been following you on LinkedIn. You guys are up to some amazing stuff. You're a LinkedIn influencer. You're doing some incredible deals in private equity and special purpose acquisition companies. Like, kind of give us an idea. If I just met you, Jeff, who are you and what do you do?
So I am a serial finance guy. I've been in finance for 28 years. I spent 21 years of my career on Wall Street. I was one of 6 people that ran the Merrill Lynch wealth management business worldwide. And then in 2016, I retired from the street and public markets to come into the private sector. For about 3 years, I just kept, every single morning looking the man in the mirror and just kind of asking myself, what are you doing? What are you doing? The world is changing. It's changing. I was investing in private equity at the time with some really cool transactions, and just decided, if not now, then when? And one morning, that was it. And I started Fuel Venture Capital in 2017. I started it in Miami, Florida, which at the time, Josh, was something that everybody thought I had lost my mind, right? If you're going to be in venture capital, what the hell are you doing starting a firm in Miami, Florida? But the truth of the matter was, when I was at Merrill, my P&L responsibilities were the state of Florida, the state of Georgia, state of Alabama, all of Latin America and the Caribbean. So I knew the Central America and Southern, South America. I knew how big of a deal that was. And I knew that in a short order, that was going to become a very important jurisdiction for American companies needing to grow. And also just the amount of expansion and everything that was going on in LATAM. And so I was just like, why would I want to be in San Francisco, which is the farthest thing away from this incredible, garden, which is about to just blow up. And so I did that. And then, here we are in 2021, and everybody and their damn neighbor is here now. I mean, you can't even buy a house, right? It's just absolutely crazy what has happened in the last year and a half.
Yeah, the great country of Florida is really doing good. Everybody's moving here from Texas and from California and New York. Florida's booming.
It from everywhere. It's interesting because I've been in Miami for 21 years, and up until a year and a half ago, the English language was the second most spoken language in Miami. It was really, I didn't feel like I lived in the United States. And I used to always tell that to people. If you want to go to the US, just drive up to Fort Lauderdale. You're from Fort Lauderdale, so that's about as American as it gets. But in Miami, I really didn't feel like I lived in America, but that's starting to change now. There's a lot more Americans here. You hear a lot more English now than you ever did before. It's really, really changing.
And the food and like the restaurants and the nightlife in like Fort Lauderdale and Miami and Key Biscayne, I mean, beautiful. Like the scenery's beautiful. The beaches are gorgeous. Like I love Fort Lauderdale and South Florida, except the traffic. The traffic,
yeah,
we
the
haven't quite
traffic
figured
is
it out yet.
Yeah, the traffic is getting crazy. But that's why there's this big focus and push on micromobility and drone taxis, and all of that stuff it's no longer a fictional novel. I mean, it's reality. I was in an event about a week ago, and I was talking to a bunch of founders who had moved here from all over the world, and they don't own cars. They don't have car insurance. They use micromobility. They use scooters, and if they have to go farther than 2 miles, they use an Uber.
Yeah.
And the world has just completely changed. And there's talk. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's definitely talk at the city council level in Miami where they don't want cars to be able to actually move around in the major parts of the city anymore. So in downtown Miami, what they want to do is just no cars allowed. And if you need to get around, it would be all micromobility. They've done that already in London. They're trying to do it in New York City. They did it in Paris. I mean, it's definitely changing.
That's unique. Yeah. I drive to work on a golf cart. So like, I love
Yeah.
it. I walk or I ride. Yeah, I think that I think you're right.
Well, in
I think
Ocala, you can kind of do that and whatever else you want, right? So
yeah,
that doesn't surprise me, to be honest.
well, in Ocala, we could ride a horse to to the office. So
I was going to say that, but then I caught myself. And so, but you said it, not me.
that's right. That's right. All right.
Yeah.
So when you started a VC group in South Florida, 2017, people are like, "What the heck are you doing?" You're like, "Just wait and see." Right? What size fund did you guys build down there?
So the flagship fund was 170 million when it was all said and done.
Yep.
And then we had a successor fund that was focused just on fintech that we took from the flagship. So the flagship is a fund which is multidimensional. So it has 8 verticals that we focus on. There's 30 companies that backfill those verticals. And it ranges also in the rounds. So in 2017, 2018, we had a couple seed stage companies, which are now late stage companies. But the most recent deployments that we've made are all late stage. Like the most recent one we did was a convert to IPO, which doesn't get any later than that. And then again, as I was just saying, we took 5 of the companies that were late stage out of the flagship, and we created a concentrated focus, low duration on 5 of those companies, all focused on fintech, and that was 100 million.
Okay, got it.
So right now we're sitting, with the public company and everything else, we're sitting, close to a little bit over 400 million.
Okay, so when you did this, you said you retired from the street, the Wall Street, right? And
Yeah.
you went to private. You said you looked in the mirror. Jeff, what did you see when you looked in the mirror? Rather than, I see the guy with brown hair and this and that, but like, what did you see that made you want to change?
Well, I think that if you, I used to have an office in Ocala. If you ever run into anyone at Merrill Lynch, you can bring up my name. They'll know who I am. And I think that, I was kind of known as that guy who was always out on the edge. I've always prided myself on getting on my horse and riding out into the future 4 or 5 years and coming back and really designing strategy, which I felt needed to be implemented in order for us to continue to be relevant. And that's really the role that I saw myself playing at Merrill Lynch. And so when you asked me what I was seeing when I was looking in the mirror, it was that I was really unable to do that anymore. When Merrill Lynch was purchased by Bank of America, it just changed. And that's expected. Bank of America is a very big organization. It's a good organization. But they have their way of doing things, and their way of doing things was very different than how we did things at Merrill Lynch. And so my creativity was stifled a little bit. And so I was just personally not fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And again, I was investing in the creative economy. I had an outside interest approval, and I was investing in the creative economy, and that's really what I was, interested in. And I've been responsible for other people's money my entire career. I saw that there was some things that I felt needed to be improved upon in the asset class, and I felt that, I could bring improvements, and I could build a fund that was designed for ultra high net worth individuals and family offices from around the world who could trust us because we're extremely analytical. We don't, this isn't a game to us, right? We take it very, very seriously. And I think we apply our public knowledge, plan, process, and discipline to the asset class, which may be missing a little bit, out there, And so, so for me, it was just, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And then I'm going to be one of those guys that, ends up retiring at 65, fat, and walking around with a cup of coffee and, God knows what. And that's just not me. So I just decided to hell with it. What do I have to lose?
What do I have to lose? Right. All right. So you and I are sitting having a coffee, right, in Miami near the beach. I like Cafe Con Leche, right? Especially down there. Yeah. You guys have great coffee. So you and I are having coffee, and the perfect deal comes across our table. Someone comes up and they're like, "Hey, Jeff, do you have a minute?" And you're like, "Sure." Right. So they sit down, and it's the perfect deal that you would invest in. What does that perfect deal look like?
Well, the perfect deal is going to start with, the connectivity to that person who's sitting at that table with us. Yeah. I'm a big, I have an incredible investment team that surrounds me that have different skill sets and different artistic styles than I do. And that was purposeful in me creating that. I'm a gut player. If I like you, then I'm going to connect with you, and I'm going to be looking for all the positives that comes out of whatever you say, because I want to support that image that I have of you in my mind. So the first thing for me is the person. And I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to get to know that person and what their track record is. I'm a big believer that successful people are always successful, and they tend to have a record of success. And if I asked you right now to spend, just tell me about yourself, and you couldn't spend more than 5 minutes telling me about yourself, then it's probably not, you're a good guy, but it doesn't mean that you're successful, right? I mean, you have to have a lot of confidence in your self-image has to be strong in this business, because it's hard. You're going to be told your idea is a piece of crap a million times. I call it the rejection Olympics. You're literally going to be rejected every single day, 20 times a day, and you're going to be beaten down, and you just have to have the willpower, the discipline to get your ass up every morning and keep going, because you don't know when that next time someone's going to say yes, and that yes is going to change your life. But so many people quit when the finish line is within touching distance. They just don't know it. So the first thing is going to be the people. The second thing is obviously going to be the idea itself. And I'm going to get into product market fit. I'm going to get into addressable market. I'm going to try to understand what it is that you're trying to disrupt. I have 30 companies in my portfolio right now. We have looked at about 5,000 companies a year since 2017. I've seen just about everything that there is to see. So within seconds, I can kind of get a feel whether or not I like the idea. Now, if I don't like the idea, but I love you, I'm probably going to take you to lunch and try to talk you out of what you're doing and try to move you into another direction, because I think you have talent, but it's just misdirected. Now, I could be wrong, and that's where you have to be careful, right?
Yeah.
But if the idea is strong, and then I'm going to get into, valuation, I'm going to get into, what do I think that my investors could make from this deal? And it has to be at least 10x in my mind. Doesn't mean that we're going to get there, but as we're doing our analysis, if we don't feel that we can get at least a 10x return, then it doesn't fit in our wheelhouse. And so then if that all goes well, I'm going to turn it over to my investment team, and then they're going to, they're going to peel the onion. They're going to lift the hood. They're going to get inside the engine, and you're not going to understand. You're going to be so frustrated for 2 weeks wondering why these people keep asking you all these questions. But that goes back to what I was saying to the question that you asked me earlier. We are our due diligence process is very, very strong.
Yeah.
Because it has to be. We're responsible for other people's money, and we cannot make mistakes. We're fallible. Everybody's going to make a mistake, but you can't make a mistake that you didn't already think through.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So, all right. I love this question. You have startups in your portfolio. You have a team. You have investors. You have your LPs, right? And now you have the public market, right? So there's a bunch of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Who do you work for?
I work for the investor. So our mantra is founder focused and investor driven. And really what that means is, and this is my professional humble opinion, okay? Without the investor, none of this exists. And I tell that to my team all the time. If we don't have our investors' capital, we can't do anything that we're doing. We can't make a dream come true if we don't have someone who believes in us and is willing to give us their hard-earned savings. And the moment that they give that to you, you have to understand there are three things that people hold closest to their hearts. One is their health. One is their family that I like to link to their faith. And one is their money. And you do not mess around with any of those things ever. It is one of the most stressful things that there is, because someone is giving you something they've worked years and years and years to do, and they're trusting that you're going to do the right things with it. And so, yeah, there's that answer.
Yeah. See, I like that because I think that in the world today, we're seeing a lot of venture capital groups pop up, and they might be impact driven and mission driven and such like that. And I think sometimes, we lose sight of who do people actually work for. And when investor hands over money, there's a major responsibility when you're taking someone else's money. Do what you want with your money, but if you're taking my money, then I expect you to value that as much as you value, your own, right? So I love the fact that you guys are founder focused, investor driven, because none of this
Yeah.
works without the capital behind it.
Yeah.
Now, the next question. So we finished our coffee. Great deal. We tossed it over to your investment team. Now, what's the rest of your day look like on a day-to-day basis? You're
Oh,
busy, you got public companies,
yeah.
companies, private equity, this and that. What does your day look like, man?
Yeah. So it's funny. I was telling this story to someone the other day. We have a global firm. So we have boots on the ground in Denmark. We have boots on the ground in Tel Aviv. We have boots on the ground in London. We have boots on the ground in Mexico City. We have boots on the ground in Guatemala City. We have boots on the ground here in Miami. We have boots on the ground in Spain. So can't leave out my partners in Spain. So you say you're going to start your firm globally, but what you don't realize until you do that is you're biting off a massive chunk. My day starts usually around 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning if I get to sleep in. And the reason for that is because all of my partners and all the things that we're looking at offshore, in Tel Aviv or even Dubai, sometimes depending on. So I have like one of my business development guys is in Spain, but he's responsible for the Middle East. So he's in Dubai a lot. So, usually starts at 3:30 in the morning, and I have a number of Zoom meetings. And before you know it, it's usually 8 or 9 in the morning. And then, I'll usually have lunch around 8 or 9 in the morning because I've already had breakfast at 3:30 or 4. I'll jump in the shower, and then I get to the office, and then it's just craziness all day long. 30 companies, which means I have 30 kids, 30 children,
Yeah.
that need, attention, and they have things going on. Podcasts, interviews on, CNBC or whatever it might be. And then at night, there's always something going on, right? You've got to be somewhere, especially in Miami right now. Last night I got home at 10, and that's usually what it is. It's usually 3:30 to 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. People think that this is like, especially if they follow us on our social media, think that this is like, just all fun and games. But I'm going to tell you something. It is, everybody on this team works 80, 90, 110 hours a week, depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
You got investment banking meetings that you have to deal with, and sometimes multiple investment bankers that you have to deal with. You have, there's just so much going on, especially when you're trying to take companies public. There's a lot to it, and there's so many little things, and anything can blow up, and it's crazy.
Yeah. What is a tool that you use to help you manage all of that information and all of those details?
A great question. So when I was, in my former life as an executive at Merrill, like I had 3 personal assistants. I had a staff like you couldn't believe. When I came and started Fuel, one of the things that I realized was how far behind I was because I had all these people around me. Okay. Now the idea was these people around me are to figure out how to get all the little things done so that I could think and do the bigger picture stuff. But I really think that there's a lot of, for me, there's danger in that, because what can happen is you can get too far behind. And what I mean by like behind is like just using certain technologies, right? Your assistant used it, but you didn't use it, right? And I realized that when I started my firm. And so, no one on my team is allowed to use Microsoft products. Everything we do is Apple. Everything in this office is technologically the best that there is. I mean, we have robots running around here, for God's sakes. And so what I've done, which is interesting, is I've tried to force myself not to have an assistant. So when you ask me what I'm using to manage all this stuff, it's really it's software packages. It's, we have Google Suite, which allows us to share documents. Everything is on my laptop. Everything is on my iPad. Everything is on my iPhone. And right now, 4 years into this, I haven't gone back to having someone working with me. Now, my team wants me to do that, but I'm hesitant to it because I'm afraid if I do it, I'm going to start getting mentally lazy again. And I don't ever want to do that.
Yeah. So you're in shape. You're working like a madman, right? Like the hours are awesome. Like, why do you do this? Why not just retire?
It's another really great question. Well, I can't retire. There's no way I can retire. I don't know what the hell I would do with myself, right? And you know what? I love what I do. I get to see things that most people don't get to see, 10, 15 years ahead of time. I mean, I get to see some of the coolest things that would make you just like, that can't be real, right? I get to meet some of the most interesting human beings on earth, that are just, they're on the edge of craziness and they're creating things that nobody in a million years would have thought of. I'm responsible for other people's, one of the three things that people, hold closest to their hearts. And I take that with a lot of respect. But those people are all, they're family to me, right? I mean, every single investor in this fund has my iPhone, cell phone, text me, WhatsApp me, whatever, 24 hours a day. Cause they know, my sleep patterns are it's condensed. They can get a hold of me at any time. And I like that, I don't ever want my firm to get so big that we remove ourselves from that, because I think that's what makes us special. Yeah. And we have conversations sometimes that have nothing to do with finance. Just, someone wants me to talk to their son or their daughter because they're graduating from school and they need some advice or whatever else. So I believe I was put on this earth to serve people, and I enjoy doing it. And as long as I can do it, I'm going to keep doing it. And to be really honest with you, I am a workaholic. I'm King Kong drug addict of working. It's just what I love to do.
It's who you are, right? You enjoy this game.
Yeah.
Right? You enjoy being in it. All right. So you mentioned in this that the people you're working with, the groups you're working with, from investors to team members, they're part of your family. And you said every once in a while you get an opportunity where someone goes, "Hey, will you talk to my kid? They're just about to graduate, college or going to college or something." So here's a scenario. We're having coffee again, next time we meet up and we're trying a new restaurant. By the way, what's a good place in Miami to go grab a really good cup of coffee?
My office is probably the best place to grab a good cup of coffee. So one of our investors is one of the largest coffee farmers in all of Central America.
Nice.
And I mean, his coffee goes for like $10,000 a kilo in certain, like his top line coffee.
Wow.
But he has a coffee shop on my first floor.
Oh, really?
So the best place to find a coffee, honestly, is here. And then just kind of, we built this office for the community. And, we have portfolio companies on the second floor, the private equity, all the legal, all the analytics is on the third floor. And the first floor is like a cafeteria. And that's where the coffee shop is. And, the best coffee is here. Now, there's a really cool place here, and we're in Coconut Grove.
Yeah.
There's a really cool place on Main Avenue, which just opened up, which is really cool. I can't think of the name right now. I know exactly where it is, but I can't tell you what the name is. And then of course, you go into Little Havana and it's hard to beat. Yeah. You can go pretty much anywhere and you're going to get, better than average coffee anywhere in the world.
Yeah. All right. So we're having, I want to try that coffee. 10,000 a kilo. Like that sounds incredible. What's that? Yeah. What's that equate to? All right. I'm going to put you on the spot with numbers. What's that put, down to the cup? What would a cup of that, if I wanted to taste a cup of that, what would that cost?
That about $20.
Okay. Let's do it. All right. I could afford a $20 cup of coffee.
But I tell you what, though, you can have it for free. And again, that we don't sell that downstairs. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that's crazy. I'm just saying that he does get that for his premium stuff that he ships to the Middle East and whatnot.
Awesome. All right. So you and I are having a cup of that, which I bet is just incredible. And we get an opportunity with one of your best buddies. Their kid's just about to graduate college. And he said, "Hey man, could you spend 5 minutes?" And you say, "Sure, bring him in. Josh and I'd love to chat." You get a few minutes to give a piece of advice to someone who's just about to enter the workforce, whether building a company or whatever. You get 5 minutes with that person. What's that one piece of advice you're going to give that person?
You got to work like nobody else is willing to work in the next 3 years, and you'll live like nobody else is able to live. And I really think that is what is missing today. You know, I grew up on Wall Street. My first week on the job, my boss came up to me and said, "Kid, I like you. You have 1 week to figure out when I get here. Because if I ever come looking for you in the morning and I can't find you, you're fired." After the week rolled around, I was asking his assistant, I'm making sure I'm good to go. At the end of the week, he's like, "Good for you. You're here every morning before I was. Now, if I ever come looking for you at night, you're fired if I can't find you." And, you know, that's just the way that it was. You know, they would have dinner for you. And then if you were there, if it was 10, 11 o'clock at night, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, there was a black car that was waiting for you downstairs. To this day, it's still like that. If you go, you know, to the financial district in New York, there's black cars lined up at 1 o'clock in the morning around 3 or 4 blocks. That's the way that it was. Now that's changing, right? You've probably read some of that, you know, just as late as the last 3 or 4 months, you know, investment bankers complaining about the hours and all that kind of stuff. But what they don't understand is the education that they're getting is worth more than a Harvard MBA.
Yeah.
And it all just boils down to, I don't give a damn how smart you are. If I can outwork you, and that has always been my thing my entire life. I was an athlete when I was younger. And I know that when I go into a room, there are probably 3/4 of the people in the room much more intelligent than I am. But I know if that person and I get on a treadmill, they're either going to get off, I'm going to die, or I'm not getting off before they do. Yeah. So they're going to get off, or I'm going to have a heart attack and die. That's really the bottom line. They're never going to outwork me. And that's really been my thing, right? When most people are sleeping, when most people are out having a good time, when most people are just doing whatever the hell it is they're doing on the weekend, I'm reading, I'm getting smarter, I'm working on things so that when Monday morning rolls around and it's game time, I'm on the ice and I'm skating.
Yeah. Now, many people, and I know that the world's changing where people are complaining a little bit more. And maybe it's needed. I don't know. But for me, like the after hours, the before hours, the lunch breaks, the time that you get with a smarter person, like the best education I ever received was I was working in a VC group as an EIR, and we're sitting at a table and a company came to pitch. They looked at the financials, they looked at the business model. They're like, "This is, great model." And then the guy pitched, and then whatever. We got back in the car and they said, "We will never invest in this." And they told the guy later on, they gave him feedback. They didn't want to do it in front of me, but they gave the guy feedback. In his story, he talked about how he ripped someone off, right? But that little piece of nugget that I got from these guys, they say, we look for high trust. We're managing other people's money. And I just got like this incredible thing, but that was in a car ride from lunch back to the office. That, like, it was incredible to hear. And that's why I think that the after hours, the late night, the time with the people, the like what you do for your friends' kids, right? Like where people could come spend time with you. Those little golden nuggets that you're going to pick up, you're not going to get from a book, right?
Yeah. It's so true. Last night I was invited to have some drinks with a couple of young people who used to work in our marketing division. So we have a marketing division here called the Tag Experience. It's responsible for making sure that our companies are known and trusted. Okay.
Yeah.
And they went off to do other things, right? But they started here. And they just hadn't seen me in a while. And so, we went and had some drinks, and they were just saying that, there's not a day that goes by that they're not using some of my quotes and things that I say and different things like that. And I think you get to a point in your life when you get out of your into your late 40s, and I think that's really what it's all about. It's how do you want to be remembered? What did you leave behind? Right? You could be the richest guy in the world, but if everyone thinks you're an asshole, and you never found something and made it better than when you found it, right?
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, I worked at a firm when Merrill was Merrill. Leadership was their core value, and it meant something, right? And so I've had some of the greatest mentors that you can. I mean, I had Ronald Reagan's speech coach for 3 years, for God's sakes. I mean, it just didn't get any better than that. And so I always tell people, that get to come here and work, you're going to learn a lot, because those skills, it's like a Jedi, right? Or it really is. And those Jedis are dying off. There's just not as many of them anymore.
Yeah. All right. So we finish our coffee. You and I put in a brutal day. We take some companies public. We buy some companies. We just have an awesome day. Best day ever. We're going to go to celebrate. The other night you had some cocktails with some friends. You and I are going out. What are you going to, we walk up to a bar on me. You bought the $20 coffee. I'm going to buy the cocktails tonight. What are you going to order at the bar? What's your go-to drink?
In the summertime, gin and tonic. I don't know why, but when it's super hot outside, for some reason, a gin and tonic is just refreshing.
Yeah.
So that's my drink right now. And then when the wintertime rolls around, I'm probably going to have a micro brewed beer from someone here in Miami.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So personal question. As I'm doing things like I like hats, right? Like hats are my thing. I got a flat cap. I got a fedora over here, got some ball caps. Like what's your thing? Is it technology? Is it a certain shirt or clothes, a car? Like what are your things where you're like, that you get to enjoy and you're like, this is a part of who you are?
I would say watches and clothes. Yeah.
Yeah. You got style, man.
Yeah. I've been collecting watches for a long time. Watches, clothes. I love art. I'm addicted to art. I've been an art collector for 28 years. That's my big thing. I used to love cars, not so much anymore. I have a lot of cars. I have a lot of motorcycles, and I find it all to be a massive pain in the ass because I don't know what to do with any of it anymore. And half the time it doesn't run because I haven't. I took the cover off one of my motorcycles just yesterday, and realized that I looked at the tag on the license plate from 2014, and I'm just like, what the hell am I doing? I got to clean out my closet.
Yeah. Got it. All right. So the next day we go back to work. We had some gin and tonics. I had the tequila on ice, and we're looking at a bunch of different companies, and we have to decide like to take a company public. Like you're like, it's time. It's time to, bring one of these guys public. How do you decide what company goes public? Like, what do you look for? And what's your thought process in taking a company to that biggest exit?
I think it starts with the people. Are the people ready to be public servants? That's a big thing, and you see it a lot, right? I mean, we look at what happened with Uber. I mean, Travis created one of the most innovative companies of our time, but didn't evolve in his role, as far as his board was concerned. It's not for me to make that decision, but someone made the decision that he hadn't evolved in that role to be the public servant, and they brought somebody else in. Yeah. So, one of the things that I like pride myself on is really the leadership development and trying to develop my leaders to be ready for that public market, because I did that for a long time. I know what that's like, and it's a very different world. So that's the first thing. Are you ready? Is your team ready? Do you have the skills, to be able to face off with that analyst every quarter and get your ass kicked? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, do you have the numbers to support what the public investor is going to expect from you, right? And that again goes through just a tremendous amount of analytical work. And then something that I value greatly, and I really don't know if a lot of other people do, But again, you have to understand, I came from the public markets and then I'm now in the private market. And what I've started to realize that it's not always about fundamentals and technical analysis. That's what it used to be. But in today's world, there's also this element, what I like to call the wow factor, that I think in some cases can be even more powerful than the fundamentals. I mean, look at GameStop. I mean, you wouldn't buy that company on fundamentals, not in a million years, but you have a lot of people who are trading in this world now, a lot of millennials who have access to things like Robinhood and are super smart. These young people are smart. They know what the hell they're doing. And they can take, they can take something that most people would look at and say, this is, and just walk past it and turn it into, a diamond, right? Mm-hmm. So the wow factor is something that's important. And that's why I said we have an internal marketing and PR firm inside of our organization, simply because I have to make sure that my founders and the company is out there, that when an investor goes and says, well, that's interesting. I just heard Jeff Ransdell talk about Soundtrack Your Brand as a great example. And, which used to be Spotify for business. And they do all the licensing for businesses, right? And it's an enormous, addressable market. And if you look at, Spotify that trades at what, 250, 240 to 260, you start to think of yourself, well, even if they're half as successful and they're trading at, 110, 120, you've got an incredible company. So if I'm talking about Soundtrack Your Brand with you and you've got 20,000 listeners and then they go and Google Soundtrack Your Brand, there better be something cool there, right? Yeah. And if they Google Ola Sar, who's the founder, and they find out, well, Ola Sar was one of the founders of Beats that sold to Apple for $3 billion and is now Apple iTunes. That's the kind of thing that I think is really important. And I spend a lot of time on that. And I'll tell you something right now, you could have an incredible company doing an amazing business, but if I Google you and you're not relevant, I'm not going to take you public. I'm just not, because in today's day and age, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Cause the public drives the value of the company.
Yeah.
So which is funny because the public, the consumer, the investors, it's a whole new game, right? It's a whole new level of leadership that's needed. What is the difference of a leader who's running a private company, a very successful private company, and a public company? Because sometimes they can't make the transition over. And sometimes a public CEO would do terrible in a startup or a private company. Yeah. Like what are some of the differences you see?
I think the biggest difference, Josh, is governance. Yeah. I mean, when you become a public CEO, your emails are being reviewed by regulators. Everything that comes out of your mouth is being scrutinized by regulators and the SEC. Everything that you do, and what you have to understand is that you are now a public figure. And if you go to a restaurant and you get upset about something and make an ass of yourself and somebody videotapes you and you don't even know it, you're done. So you just have to understand that your life is now not just your life, it's the public's life. And that's a decision that you made. And again, you're responsible every single day to maximize the stock price of your company for the investor, period, end of discussion. That is your job. Yeah. And however you go about doing that, if you go about doing that by building culture inside of your office, then that's one thing. If you do that by driving, performance, if that's, if you just have that certain personality like a Jamie Dimon and you can just walk into a room and people fall in love with you, whatever it is that is your advantage, you got to press it, and that's your job.
Yeah. All right. So awesome. You went from Merrill Lynch managing, Wall Street and playing in that game. And then you went into venture capital and you did some private equity investments. Now you guys are involved in SPACs. Like what was that evolution there? And tell us about, what you're working on.
So the whole SPAC thing came about very, I'm not, I mean, it wasn't, I usually, most everything I do is very strategic, and I wouldn't say that this was really strategic. This was more myself reacting to frustration. So I have, you know, when you have 30 amazing companies in your portfolio, you have a lot of SPAC sponsors that are knocking on your door, asking, you know, for access to things. And what became, and I'm not saying that this is the whole, you know, cohort of SPAC sponsors. I'm not. I'm just saying that it was enough to give me the insight that there was a problem. And a lot of these people were coming in and they weren't spending, you know, months and months in due diligence. They weren't asking me the right questions or the questions that I would be asking myself. You know, they didn't have influence with these founders because they didn't have history with these founders. Mm-hmm. And it was more like a transaction. It felt more like they were thinking about it as a transaction. And that bothered me. And so I just started to think to myself, well, good Lord, you know, again, if we're putting the investor's interest at the front, doesn't it make sense that my team should probably be involved in the process of taking these companies public? Because we know more about these companies, we know more about these founders. We're never going to take a company public that has skeletons in the closet that we just didn't know about. That's not going to happen. And so I thought that, you know, we understand the private markets very, very, very well. We also understand the public markets very, very well. And so just to me, it was just this beautiful connectivity of aligning private and public bridge together. You know, if you think about the private sector, your bumper or your barrier is how do you exit the company, right? You could spend years and years and years curating these companies, but you can't monetize your time, energy, mental capacity, or investment until there's an exit. Someone either buys you or you sell it to the public or you sell it to another company. And if you think about the public markets, which have been shrinking significantly, you know, since 1997, their biggest, you know, bumper and barrier is finding great companies that bring value to to the public investor. Now, this is going to be a little long, Joshua, I'm sorry, but this is my whole thesis, and it's important. In 1997, there was a little company called Amazon that went public. It was doing top line revenue about $15 million, and its valuation when it went public was $300 million. And everybody made fun of that company until about 1999 on the street. You know, who the hell is going to buy books online? And Jeff Bezos sold a shit ton of books online, and then he did a lot of other things. And today, that company valuation between 6 and 7, you know, 1 trillion to, you know, $1.6 trillion, right? So from 1997 to 2021, whoever invested in Amazon has made multi-generational wealth.
Yeah.
Now, if you fast forward to 2019, you think about the most iconic IPO that we've had in the last couple of years, it would probably be Uber. I was an early investor in Uber in the private sector. And when it public, I did really well. But to this day, my friend, I don't think that anyone has actually made money in the public market if they own Uber, because it went you know, it was private for 11 years. Amazon was private for 3 years. It had top line revenue of over $1 billion. Amazon had not even 20 million. It had a valuation of $74 billion when it went public. Amazon was 300 million. So the point that I'm trying to make is I feel like my responsibility is to find great companies that have tremendous growth left in them. I don't really have any interest taking I don't want to take the Uber of 2019 public. I want to take the Amazon of 1997 public. And I want people like you and the people who listen to your show, who know that we really give a shit, to say, you know, that's a Ransdell product. And I'm going to follow him because I know his core values are aligned with mine, and he has my interest in play. And when I invest in that company, I know there's a ton of growth left, not no growth left, because the only people that wanted to make money was the people who rang the bell when it went IPO. I want to try to fix that. I think I think we've gotten away from what it's really all about. It's not about getting a trophy of your valuation when you go public. It's about giving the public an incredible company that has a tremendous amount of growth left in it. That's what it's about, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. And is that why you guys, built this SPAC and building other things that you guys are doing? What's the name of your SPAC?
It's called Maquia.
Maquia. Where did you come up with the name for that?
So my chief operating officer, Guillermo Cruz, came up with that. He lives in Mexico City, and it's just a Spanish. To be really honest with you, Josh, I have no idea where the reason for Maquia came up, but it's called Maquia, and again, it's a we have a very diverse team. My chief operating officers in Mexico City. My chief investment officers from Vietnam. I'm the only white boy on the whole team. So, it's a cool company.
That is very cool. What's the symbol for that?
MAQC. MAQC. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. So if people want to, check out that SPAC, see what you guys are doing. I know in the future we'll be able to talk about more things, and I'm sure there's some exciting things in the future coming up that you could talk about. But as you guys are building this, it's really cool. So for our audience, if you want to check out what Jeff's doing, MAQC, take a look at that. Now let me ask you a question, Jeff. I'm working with some investors, and we're pulling some money together, and we're interested in putting some money one place versus another. Why should someone invest in what you guys are doing rather than the group down the street from you? Like, why you? Why should we put your money there?
Well, first of all, I don't know who that other group is, so I can't really say that you should put your money with us versus them. I think at the end of the day, investors have to know who they're investing in, right? You asked me a question about 15 minutes ago. What was the first thing that I would be thinking about if someone sat down at a table and started pitching us a company? And I said it was the people. And I'm going to say the same thing to your audience. If you meet with me and you don't connect with me, you shouldn't invest with me. Period. End of discussion. Because we're in this thing. Again, it's one of the three things that you hold closest to your heart. And if there's something about me that it just doesn't rub you right, then you shouldn't be investing. And I think that people need to spend time trying to understand people's core values. Because you made a comment also that, you met with someone and they said, well, I stole someone's money. Let me tell you something. In this business, you run like hell as fast as you can away from whoever says things like that. You have to be dealing with people who genuinely give a shit about other people. If they're narcissists, wrong people, in my opinion. Yeah, but, I think you have to spend a little bit of time figuring out who these people are. You need to come to their offices. You need to meet their team. You need to, have lunch with them. You need to ask some people who, hey, have you ever heard of this guy? Who is this person when the light's not on, and the microphone's not on? Who are they really? It's one of the things that we do with our portfolio companies before we make an investment. I talk to the people who clean the damn building. How do these people treat you, right? Because if they're not treating you well, they're not going to, then that's who they really are. So, I think we have a very unique thesis. I think we're trying to better things for the investor's purpose. And I guess the investor has to figure out if they really believe that or not. And if they do, then we're probably a great fit. And if not, then you need to find out who that is. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah. All right. A few more questions. I ask questions for a living. This is what I do, right?
Good. Yeah.
All right. So you and I are hanging out, and for some reason, we've got to grab something and go. You could grab one piece of art, one watch, a piece of art or a watch or a clothing. Like, what is that one thing that you're going to go, this is something that I truly treasure? So it could be a piece of art or a watch. Like, what would you choose, and like describe, the meaning behind it and why it's important to you?
I would grab my father's 1974 GMT Rolex. That's what I would grab. My father passed away when he was 61 years old. It's a vintage watch. It sits in my watch case. I would grab that before anything. And the reason why I would grab that is because It was my father's. It was gifted to my son, and I'm kind of holding it for my son until he wants it.
Very cool.
So it's, to me, the meaning there is I have a responsibility to be, the shepherd of that thing for my son, and I'm responsible for making sure that he gets it when he wants it. So that'd be the one thing I'd grab.
That's very cool. All right. So one more question. So if people want to, explore what you're doing, they could go to MAQC, look at that symbol. What's another good place for someone if they want to do a deal with you, have you take a look at something and, get your team started on that? What's a good place for people to connect with you, follow you, and maybe do a deal with you?
So if they want to follow us, and I would, if you're interested in what we do, we do have a lot of social media presence. So we're live on LinkedIn, as you said at the beginning of the show. You can follow me on Instagram, which is Jeff Ransdell VC. That's my handle on Instagram. Our handle on Instagram for the fund is Fuel Venture Capital, super simple. And it's cool because, there's a lot of people that are coming in and out of here from time to time. We have a wall of fame. So there's always people signing the wall that, anyone from Pitbull to, just whoever, right? It's a cool, we have really great investors here. It's really, really special. And then if you have interest, like a company or something you want us to see, you would want to email Olivia, Olivia @fuelventurecapital.com and copy me, Jeff @fuelventurecapital.com. Olivia is our core analyst who's responsible for all incoming portfolio companies into the firm. And her job is to see if there's, if there's fit, if it's in our wheelhouse, if it's what we do. Like, for example, we don't do anything in biotech. It's not what we do. It's not our wheelhouse. And so it's a great vertical. It's just, we don't have any professionalism inside of it. So we're not going to, be in that space. So sometimes it's about alignment. Sometimes it's just about where we are in our own life cycle versus where you are. Like, for example, our flagship fund, the dry capital that we have left is really dedicated to the 30 companies that are in there. Now, that doesn't mean if Google shows up at our door that we're not going to invest in it. Of course we are. And we always keep capital on the sidelines for those events. So, we want to look at everything and we appreciate anybody thinking of us. It's a community. And if we can't help, we can probably connect you to someone who can.
Cool. All right. I got 2 more questions,
Okay.
which might be a lie because I keep on thinking like cool questions, right? So, all right. You mentioned Pitbull, right? You have your wall of fame and Pitbull, who's also South Floridian, right? Signed the wall. So Pitbull and I are hanging out with you and we're going to go for a ride. So we walk into the garage, pull the cover off one of the cars, and we're going for a ride. You turn on your favorite jam. What song? If I look through your phone, through your radio, through your Spotify or whatever, what song do you play the most?
Well, because I'm with Pitt, I would have to have a Pitt song. Otherwise he'd be upset with me. So probably Fireball.
Okay. And then after that, what would be the second one that you go to?
Is a song?
Yeah.
After Armando, I would say again, just because it's him, I would probably have it would be an album of Latin American music. How's that?
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
So people, if you're listening, you're top of our charts for all the music that Jeff and I play.
He's got a world tour going on right now. So if he's in your area, buy a ticket because he's selling it at every concert, by the way.
Something that he did just incredibly well. I mean, he's a fantastic musician, but when he got into the scene, he welcomed everybody to be a part of the things that he was working on. And he syndicated his albums, right? Like he was just like, hey, come on, be on a show. Like, and because of that, I think that was like one of the most brilliant things that he did. Super smart guy.
I'll tell you real quickly, he's an incredible artist. There's no question. He's one of the greatest in the world. But I'd tell you outside of that, he's a better human being and he is an outstanding businessman.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan. I like some of his old songs. But yeah, really great. Anyways, shout out to Pitbull. Last question, Jeff. What what should I have asked you, or what business or personal, like what's a question that you love it when people ask you, or that you wish someone would ask you?
You know what, Josh, I got to be honest with you, brother. You asked a lot of great questions. I don't think that, I think you've done a really good job. I can't really sit here and say, he left that out. He should have asked me that question. I mean, I think you did it. I mean, I've enjoyed this very much, and I can tell why you're successful and why you're going to be even more successful. So I appreciate that.
And I've received that. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, my request to you is that you always reach out to our guests. Say thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story here. Follow what they're doing. Follow them on LinkedIn and Instagram, and follow their channels. Like, they're deal makers and they're doing some incredible things. If you want to know more about their business, head on over to their stock symbol. Check that out. Check out what they're doing. Find a way to do a deal with our guest. And if you're working on a deal or want to talk about it, head on over to thedealscout.com, fill it out, maybe be on the show next. Till then, talk to you all on the next episode. Thank you, everybody.